line begins with lehitpashtusan. It's really one Indian, but we can go back. And right in the middle of that top paragraph, there's a line that begins with what lehitpashtusan.
Sorry?
The principle that we discussed in the previous mimer, that's based on is presented with the moshel of the koiches hanefesh. This is the only place where we can actually understand it. That the koiches hanefesh, they are individual koiches, and they come forth in a very precise manner to the point where they are mislabish. They actually imbue themselves. They're imbued in the various parts of the body, in the full sense of the word, that they become part of it. Even though they are koiches hanefesh, which, as we discussed, is a phenomenal inyan. So now we're saying that the similar inyans l'maylo. L'maylo, there is also the mus, the mus hakisa, the mus k'mar yodam. There's a mus k'mar yodam. The mus means a similarity, an appearance that appears like k'mar yodam, like the appearance of Odom. Odom, we explained that Odom is a overall principle in the entire creation, and the principle in it is that Odom consists of an entire structure, top to bottom. He starts from Chochmah, comes from Meichim, all the way down through all the midas, through all the various levels, until it comes down to Malchus, to Asiyah. Like we said, in the human being there is Moichin, there is Seichel, there's Midas, and there's Machshava Dibur U'Maisa, which is coming out to the outside. In the Seder Ishtalshlus, there is also with the Mus K'marei Odom. But then there is a principal statement that ein loy the mus when ein loy goof when it mus aguf, that in the Milo there is not a goof and there is not even a mus aguf. And this is what we're discussing. What is it l'maylo? Are they separate koiches and separate oiris, or are we saying ein a goof ein a mus aguf? So we're saying that this inyan, that there is a goof and musa goof, there is esas spheres. This is not in atmosphere in Sof. This is in the oires and giluyim of Ein Sof to nimsha b'esas spheres Atzilus. This is how the inyan is nimsha. The oires are nimsha in Atzilus. In Atzilus there is esas spheres. This is why Atzilus is the first level that's called a world, because it actually consists of 10 spheres in Keli. Hopefully all this will become more clarified as we go through. But then he says that in Atzilus too, even in Atzilus, even though in Atzilus there are 10 spheres, and yet it is above hagbola above a definition and a limit. And this is what lehitpashtusan is, that the essence filas Atzilus ain't soif lehitpashtusan. There is not an end to their spreading forth, which means there is no boundary, there's no way of defining them in a definitive manner. Let's start inside over here, and as I said, as time goes on, we will revisit it and put things in perspective. V'nikro gamkin es esfilas blima. The Esses Filas of Atzilus are also referred to as Esses Filas Blima. Blima means without a want. Our mom is what? In other words, there is no clear definition what it is. It does not have a presence. As it is presented in Sefer Yitzira, Midosan Eser, that their measure is 10, but Ein Lahem Sof. They're 10, but Ein Lahem Sof. But there is not an end to these 10. How can it be if Ein Lahem Sof, so how are they 10? They're all of them are all over Ein Lahem Sof. You say no? There's both Ein Lahem Sof, and yet it's called there's a measure to it, and they're 10. We're in the middle of the paragraph that begins on Yud Aleph, page Yud Aleph. Now we are at the end of the line that begins with the word lehitpashtusan. So we are presenting contradictory statements, and ultimately, with Hashem's help, we'll try to get a sense and understand how that can be. So he says that their midosan eser, their measure is 10, shein lahem sof, which do not have any end. Shegam k'moi shehein bebechinas midu v'shir the eser, which means that even in a state, at the level, k'moi shehein, as they are in the level bechinas midu v'shir, of having a measurement of 10, bebechinas michusim miyuchodim, which means that they have individual qualities, individual presences. Nevertheless, even in that sense, they are nonetheless they retain their quality of being Ein Sof of limitless. As it discussed elsewhere. This is a clear contradiction in terms of our perception. If they're Ein Sof, how are they distinct mehusim, distinct presences? How are they a measure of 10? So right now, we just have to retain the question, and eventually, hopefully, things will fall into place. As explains elsewhere. And yet still, this is going back to the other side, he's saying Ein Sof, or instead still, nevertheless, the 10 spheres represent a tziyur odom, a structure of odom. What is it, the structure of odom? Structure of odom is chesed reya yamina. That chesed is the right arm. Gemura reya smola. And Gemura is the left arm. And Chochma is Moicha. And Chocham is in Moyach. What is the point of saying Dreya Mina, Dreya Smola, and Moyach? The point of bringing it at that level, right arm, left arm, and Moyach, is to make a clear point. Bebchinas hislapshus oir bikli. Now this is an oir in a keli. Moyach in the human being is very distinct. Moyach is a distinct place, a distinct a part of the odom. The right arm and the left arm are very distinct. It is not an overall reality that a person has a moyach and he has koiches. Each koyach is identified individually to the point where they have their individual place where they function. This tziyur odom is also to be understood in Atzilus, in Olam HaAtzilus. What is the significance of it being Olam HaAtzilus? Again, this is something which will surface as we go. But again, in order for us to stay inside, stay focused, to have a sense of to be able to relate to these words, because Atzilus and Briah and anything else, it means the same thing. What does it mean, Oyam Atzilus? Just an introduction, although I'm sure everybody is familiar with that introduction, but nevertheless I have to bring it in here. The word Atzilus has two implications. One is Atzilus comes from the word etzel. Etzel means staying close to the source. Etzel, by, with. And another implication, the word Atzilus, which is the major principle of Atzilus, is the fact that Atzilus means emanation. There's a distinct difference, and I'm sure that we can relate to that, the difference between creation and emanation. Creation implies that this was something created by some kind of an act externally, made to be externally. Emanation is also a specific statement, but it's a statement that reflects and it stays connected to the source. It's an emanation of that source. Now this is essentially the difference between Atzilus and Briah. Briah is an actual creation. Atzilus is called Atzilus, an emanation. The principal difference between creation and emanation is that creation identifies its own presence on the basis of what it is, its place and its structure. Take, for example, I hope you're staying with me. Take, for example, a table. We discussed many times that the principle of table is actually rooted in the Nefesh HaOd. It's a human principle, a human concept. But at that level, and in that sense, that it's a human concept, it does not have its own presence. It's the human presence that makes it be. Whereas when you create a table and the table stands on its own, then that table now relates to itself. And it stands there because it has its own means of standing. It has its own four legs and its own location. And that's how it stands. This means Briah. Briah means even though, must not be lost, sense that this creation is something which was created by the human concept, the human soul. And it still continues to represent that. If not for the principle or the concept of table, these legs and these pieces of board had no significance, and they would not be standing in your house. They stand in your house because they do represent a human being. But at this point, they have their own presence. This is the union of Briah and Atzilus. So what we are saying is, Atzilus is not a real presence, real existence of its own. It's an emanation from its source. And its source is what gives it a presence. Nevertheless, it still is described as a tziyur odom. It has a structure. To the point where it is said that the various qualities in Atzilus, various qualities in these, at that level, also have their individual place and individual keli. Just like on the human being, Chesed is represented and it's mislavish in the right arm. The right arm and the left arm are two distinct places, presences. And the Chayes HaNefesh that comes from the Nefesh is mislabish individually in the right arm and in the left arm. And in the Moyach, which is the Meichin, which is the Seichel. This is the way it is in Briah, in the human being. This is the way of creation. Atzilus is not a creation. It is only an emanation, as we said. But even there, it is called tziyur odom. It has a tziyur odom. Tziyur odom means that there too there is a distinct place for chesed and gvura and moich and seichel. And that really is kind of challenging to be able to relate and to think of such a reality that it is not really a presence and yet they are distinct presences. And this is what we're going to discuss. All right. So let's see inside. I'm just going to read inside, so we will see how it is said inside. The line begins with that actually they're not, that they are ain't safe. And yet still they have the tziyur odom, they have the human form. What's mean the human form? The form of odom. What is odom? Chesed, gvura, drei mina. Chesed has its own place, it's in the right arm. Gvura has its own place, it's in the small, which is the left arm. Chochma, then there is chochma, which is the principal koyach in moichin, in intelligence. Moicha, this is in moyach. Again, it's in a separate, in a separate place. Bebechinas his lapshus oil bikli, which means that it actually comes to the point where it can be identified and is defined as his lapshus oil bikli, but the oil is in a keli. Let's discuss keli for a moment. A keli is a vessel that's like a cup. We put water in a cup And then that water fills the cup and actually relates to this cup, to the point where you can pick up the cup and carry the water with you. Contrast that. Think of this. Similar Inyan. If you put the cup into a basin of water, in a lake, and the lake and the water fills the cup, then the water that's in the cup be slapness in the cup. You follow what I'm saying? Is that water be slapness in the cup? No. The cup is full of water, but it's not relating to the cup. It's not being slapness in the cup.
It's part of the lake.
It's part of the lake. Saying Atzilus is not really a separate Atzilus. Atzilus is an emanation of Kesed, of Atzilus. And yet, they're a separate spheres. And these spheres, it is not incorrect to say that they form a tzirod, a structure. A structure means, and you said, that there is a keli, a separate keli for each one of the qualities. Chesed has its keli, and the Buddha has its keli, which means bihislapshus. Bihislapshus means that it is distinct, and it functions only through the keli. You understand the principle? Because the water that's in the cup, when the cup is in the lake, does not function through the cup. Does not relate to the cup. And here we're saying that it's Ein Sof. It's not a real Metzius. And yet there is a Tziyur Odom. And there's a slapshus oibekli. It is like saying that the water in the lake can be slavish in the cup. Now we see the challenge of this. What does it mean? He slapshus in the cup. It's Ein Sof. So why don't you slapshus in the cup? I'm not going to answer the question. I'm going to call your attention to what we're learning. So at least we know what we are saying.
Rabbi, what about this structure we say is human, like the Adam? You've mentioned as a structure here going top down, but what about it is human? Like we speak a lot about the Inyan of a human being. So what is...
What?
We speak a lot in this class about the Inyan and significance of human beings. So what about this is Adam? Specifically, not just tzir, but tzir adam.
No. What is your question? Tzir adam. We said tzir adam is that there is all the koiches, each individual in its distinct place in the distinct. The seichel is in the mayach, and the chesed is in the right hand, and the Buddha is in the left hand. What's your question? That's your order. One second, Yeshua is not finished yet.
What about it is? We can say there's the Inyan of the koichos are dressed up within specific kalim, but why is that specifically human?
Because that's what a human being is. That's what Adam is.
What do you mean by that's what Adam is?
I mean, Adam is a structure of Chochmah, of Seichel and Midas, and the whole structure. That's what Adam is. Above that, there is no structure.
I never caught the question, but it might seem that every creation has structure. So what's the human element?
The human element is representative of the the totality of creation. Every creature does not have a real presence. It has its limited functionality. The human being is a total presence.
So that array, that fullness of
a full array of seichel, starting from chokhmah, which is a non-entity, which looks into the godly truth, all the way down to the feet to action. That's what Adam is.
Why the seichel we said is in the moya? Why did we say the chesed is in the hand? What does it mean? Chesed in the vida, right hand, left hand.
Can I get in here at some point?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
So this is how it is in Atzilus, that there's a structure, etc., whereas what you would think is that being an emanation and not a creation, there would be no structure, just like the Ayin Safe that emanates it. Is that it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. So Reb Shlomo is asking, okay, we understand how seichel is distinct from everything else. What about midas? Why midas is relating the right hand and left hand and so forth? The reason you have the question is because it appears to you that midas are bichlal not a distinct presence. The midah, it is how the seichel functions on the lower level. Because in fact seichel is the primary human reality. So for this we have to understand that yes indeed, seichel is the primary human reality. But seichel, the primary human reality is chokhmah, not even seichel. But then chokhmah comes down into bina, where bina identifies various parts that can be drawn from the chokhmah. And every chokhmah has a tendency to chesed or to gvura. Chesed means revelation and gvura means concealment. So there is the union, revelation and concealment the way it is in its source. But actually, this is the full-fledged creation itself. That in creation, like in a human being, if the koiches were completely totally representing of the seichel, why do you write with the right hand, not with the left hand? They control the seichel, so what's the difference, the right hand and the left hand? And why the hand? Why not with the foot? The reason we have these difficulties and these questions, and I'd like to attend to them before we go into the depth of this, the reason we have these questions is that the unity that can exist in the human being, and the human being functions on the various levels. He thinks, he speaks, he walks, he writes. We don't realize how these qualities are distinct realities. Each one is a creation. What does it mean each one is a creation? The principle is the following. I'd like you to understand this principle. This is something which is, so to speak, daunting us all the time. It appears to us that all our activities are reactive. We're not active proactively. We're not writing because we have the quality of writing. We're writing because we want to communicate. We have to communicate a certain thought to this person. He is not here, and the only way I can communicate is by writing it. So the whole principle of writing is created at the moment of necessity. From that perspective, there's really no difference why you're writing with the right hand, the left hand, or with your foot. As long as he can read it, it's what I call writing. I, my own, if I did not have the necessity of communicating with this other person, I would not relate to writing at all. There's no such thing. I would stay in my own mind, in my own chokhmah, and this is where I would be. This is what we have to understand, that this is not true. Hashem created a human being to be functional, to be proactive, to be creative in the world. And if you don't want to hear what I have to say, I'm going to wake you up and say, listen to what I have to say. Because I have a mission. And you say, but I can't read your thoughts. No, don't listen to my words. And listen to my writing. So all of these qualities are really part of the creation of the human being. These are not reactive. David has sent us into a mission in the world. To affect the world, he gave us all the quality, the ability to do it. To transform the world. Like we said the other day, the foot is not capable of moving a cup from place to place. It's able only to kick the cup. But that's not sufficient. If you want to build the world, you have to be able to move it. This is what the hand is able to do. Did anybody ever watch, I'm sure you did, bricklayers? The guy is standing on the 17th floor and is laying bricks, building a wall. Do you know what precision is necessary in that bricklaying? How much experience and exactitude goes into this? To us it seems, the bricks are laying on one end. It's a tremendous exactitude, because the amount of cement between each brick has to be exactly the same. Otherwise the wall will look crooked. Not only look crooked, but when be crooked, they will not stand. The principle of standing is the straightness, how it relates to the ground. And if it's not straight, it won't stand. This is not a quality that occurs on the fly. It's a quality the human being has the ability to do things exactly the right way. All right.
So why the right? So the right hand.
The right hand. Each one of the kochas has its own means to express itself in the world. The right hand relates to chesed, which relates to expression, to revelation. And that's what the right hand is able to do.
Isn't it always saying that the midas is in the heart?
The midas is in the heart, just like it's in the seichel. But the heart does not act the midas. Just like your words, speech is in the thought. Do you speak with thought or with your mouth? The motivation for the midah is in the heart. But the actualization of the midah is in the hand. Because the meaning of the midah is not how you feel, it's how you express your feeling, how you act.
And the left hand is Gevira.
Nothing is good, it's withdrawing.
Because it's weaker.
It's weaker from a chesed perspective, but actually it can contain the chesed. It has the element of withdrawing, of limiting.
So the actualization of cycle is in Chochmah, and the actualization of midas is in the hands.
The actualization of seichel is
in the moyach.
Is in the moyach, in bina, and in machshava, and in dibur. All right. Okay, so now again, let's. I'm starting again from the line that begins with Moki Mach.
This was all an answer to what question?
This is an answer to a question. Why do we say that midas are in the right hand and the left hand? Midas are all coming from the seichel. At least that's how I understood the question. It's all one person, the right hand and left hand. It's one person who has all of these qualities, all these capabilities. They are not created on the fly. They're created in the planning. Like you mention all the time, I'm going back a little bit just to make it concrete. Let's make man in our form. And they will rule the world. How are they going to rule the world? Because in their mind they think how the world should be. How are they going to rule the world? They're going to rule the world because they're going to actively direct the world in a certain way.
How is it different? You said the difference was active versus reactive. The person is acting reactively still is going to find the best way to accomplish something. So something happened to me, okay, I have to respond to it, I have to find the best way.
Give me that box, please. Thank you.
Throw it down
Okay. Is there a difference between taking this and putting it over here, or taking it away from here?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the difference?
One is, I
All
know,
right.
what did you mean to do in the second one? Just to kick it out of the way. I mean, one is intentional.
Exactly right. This is simply saying, I don't want it to be here. This is saying, I want it to be here. That's the difference between active and reactive.
How does that, what's the implication on that and the fact that each koyach has a certain place? You give that in response to why is chesed expressed in...
That means because there is a proactive element in it. That's exactly what Abitrin is saying. There's a proactive element. He can actually accomplish what he needs to accomplish. Not just kick it away from the place.
Get rid of the problem.
Huh?
Not to get
Get
just
rid
to-
of the problem. Right?
But how's that more of how is the fact that it's proactive more an expression of the fact that each keli, each limb has a koyach which is
Okay, you answer that question.
is
I'm not gonna. You answer that question. Oh, really? Come on.
Well, I guess not every reactive thing is just kicking it out of the way. Sometimes a person can react like you said, but I have to write something because I can't say something. The person's not here. I have to write something. So a person's going to write something, and it's still the best way to write.
So that's the same thing. In other words, if there is not a preconceived idea of what I'm going to do, it's all reactive. Like you said many times recently, there's a difference between a person eating because he's hungry or eating because he wants to live. Because he's hungry is a completely different type of eating. Okay, let's go. Okay, again, I'm starting from the line begins with Moki Macher and we'll just go through it. Mekom, yet still. Harei hu b'bchinas siyur odom, even though it is ein soif, nevertheless, there's a siyur odom, b'chinas siyur odom. What does that mean, b'chinas siyur odom? Chesed reyo yimino. Chesed is in the right arm. Gevura is in the right left arm. Reyo small. And Chochma, even Chochma, is specifically in Meicha. Chochma is defines the human being in an overall perception. What does human being stand for? It's also in the Meich. You would think Chochma is everywhere. No, Chochma is in the Meich. Bebechinas is slapshus oi bikli. What does it mean that it is in the right arm, the left arm? It means not merely that it functions through that, whether it be slapshus or bikli. Slapshus means it's imbued. That's few more words. That the oir comes down and it is actually recognized in tfisa b'hakeli. It is actually grasped in the keli. This we discussed in the previously in the previous moment. This is phenomenal inyan. It is not incorrect to say that the brain understands. Although the brain is a physical nerve. Nothing physically you understand. It is not incorrect to say that the hand writes. The hand does. In common expression, he has good hands. I think he has good hands. Who has bad hands?
Has a good head.
Huh?
Has a good head.
He has a good head. All of these qualities is referring actually to the chayas hanefesh that's in the hand, chayas hanefesh that's in the brain. But it becomes so unified with the keli that it is one with it. And the expression in previous Maimer was that it is the chomer hamoyach. that understands. Chomer means, everyone knows what chomer means? The material. It is the moyach that understands. Nobody is foolish not to say that the moyach understands. But the chayes hanefesh, the seichel of the nefesh that comes from the nefesh, is mislavish in the moyach to such an extent that it doesn't just control the moyach. It has to be a shlashus. And the motion for that, as far as we're concerned, which will give us a handle on this idea, is we can write with your foot. You could write with your foot. That will not be called hislapshus. Then the moyach has the mind has to control every movement of the foot. And the result is that he wrote. But the foot was not involved in writing. The hand cannot relate to that kind of fine activity. When you write with your hand, yes, the hand actually relates to writing. Different hislapshus. Tfisa, because nitwas indicate. This is all describing the principle of tziyur odom, the structure. That every oir has a distinct keli. And what is the point that it has a distinct keli? The principle that it has a distinct keli is that the oil and the keli combine to a perfect union. Perfect union means let's say we talked about writing. Writing is not just merely making a form of a letter that it can be read, but the form of the letter has a certain character and a certain beauty to it. This character and this beauty can improve. The more one practices, the more one focuses in, it can improve on a continuous basis. In the concept itself, in the oir hanefesh, the most perfect sense of what a letter should be is already there. But then, for that to trickle through until that actually is recognized by the hand and it is affected by the hand, and the hand will produce this beautiful letter, that takes a long process. What is the process about? The process is that this concept, the way it exists in the nefesh, should be limited and defined in such a precise degree that now it can be expressed by the hand. Let us project the following. Let us imagine that a table gets built by the thought of a table. In the thought, the table is perfect. It's exactly the way the nefesh wants it. How much does it take to build that perfect table? To translate that concept on the practical level is a tremendous amount of effort. And then many gyrations of that. This is the meaning that every oil has a keli miyuchedes, has a distinct keli, to the extent the oil fits into the keli to be according to the way the keli can accept it. This is the principle of etzel.
The expression that every or, that implies that it's already mischalech when it went out from the neshama.
Right. Yeah, right. The Kli HaChochma, that's enough said. I mean, everybody can further develop. The Kli HaChochma, with the Keli of the Chochma, who Keli in the oil HaChochma Dafka. The Chochma, Bina, and Das, all three reside in the brain. In the brain itself, there are three distinct chambers. One that is accepting the oil hachochma, another that accepts the oil habina, and the other accepting the oil hadas. The keli hachochma, keli the oil hachochma dafka. That keli of chochma is a keli for the oil of chochma dafka, which means only it's exclusively fit for chochma. The keli habina, the oil habina dafka. The kli habina is suited for the oil habina. Similarly, in the midas of chesed and gvura, kuli, etc., all the midas. Sheyesh lechol oil keli miyuchedes. For each oil, there is a unique keli. To put this again in perspective for ourselves, it means this: that a person does tzedakah, for example, he does an infant shel chesed. This is an external act. He takes a penny and gives it. Is it in fact an external act, or is this something that he is perfectly comfortable with, and it is his full participation is involved in this gift? All he's giving is doing a very simple act. And the act is done by the hand. He is taking it and giving it. But the hand is suited for the hand that receives this instruction and this inspiration. The hand itself is inspired to do this act. And that is when the act is actually taking place. Again, you can give tzedakah with your foot. It'll happen, but this is not a gift. The oyer ha-chesed is not mislabish in the foot. What does this mean? It means that when you take a penny and you give it for tzedakah, the superficial act is I took a penny and put it over here. I took it from here and put it over here. Not true. It is a neshama act. You've taken something that belongs to you, and you are donating it and giving it in order to accomplish some act of chesed. You are participating not just in the result of the fact that this penny is now in his hand. You're participating in this act from A to Z, B to Z. From concept all the way to execution.
You made it happen? Is this the right word?
Made it happen is just an extra. I said you can make it happen with your foot.
Oh.
You are participating, you're actually doing it, it's a completely different thing. The halacha is, everybody knows, that if you lose $1, and the poor man finds $1, and he goes and buys himself a cup of coffee with it, and this revives him, you have the mitzvah of tzedakah. But it's not the same as giving it to him. This is when it happened to you, through you. But this is when you are actually doing it.
Isn't that that's the halacha? That's the halacha. How isn't that a contradiction to what you're saying? You're saying that act, a human act, has to be done with human savor or human intent. And now you're saying that. Now you're saying that.
Wait a second. Shmuel, you're putting words that I did not say.
Well, that's how I understand it.
No,
okay,
no.
So
I did not say it has to be. You could give it tzedakah with your foot. That's what I said.
Even that. If you give it with your foot, as long as there's some intent to give. That seems to be higher.
But it's not. There are all kinds of different levels. Exactly right. All I'm explaining is that when you do the act, that there is an element where the entire act represents a human spirit. The oyer is mislabish in the keli. The oyer ha-chesed is mislabish in the keli of the hand. The ha-chochm is mislabish in the keli of chochm. Sheyesh l'chol oyer keli miyuchedes. Every oyer coming from the nefesh has a keli miyuchedes, has a unique keli that can relate to that particular oyer.
Rabbi Paltiel?
Yes, sir.
So, when normally we think of midas as connected to the lave, midas shabalev. So why do we say that Midas is in the hand, the right hand or the left hand, and the lave is sort of is not mentioned directly?
It originates in the heart. Midas originate in the heart, just like it originates in the seichel. But then, by the ultimate, because the union from Midas is not just that I want to give tzedakah, but I'm actually giving tzedakah. Also, that is also motivated by the midah. The inspiration for the final act is also from the midah. That comes in a hand. The actual fulfillment of the midah. Just like in seichel, the culmination, the fulfillment of seichel is not that I'm able to learn, but I'm learning and I understand. As a matter of fact, the ultimate level of understanding is in machshava and in dibur. When you're able to verbalize what you understand, this is when the understanding is fulfilled. All right, this is it for this morning.
We get a lot of opportunity for the mitzvah learning.